want everybody to put your hands up in the air and clap this one. I'm trading my sorrows. I'm trading my shame. I'm laying it down for joy of the Lord. Yeah. I'm trading my sickness. I'm trading my pain. I'm laying it down for joy of the Lord. Everybody pick one. Whatever you want, Lord, I'll say yes. Whatever you say, Lord, I'll say yes. What you want me to do, Lord, I'll say yes. Lord, whatever you want, Lord, I'll say yes. Whatever you say, Lord, I'll say yes. What you want me to do, Lord, I'll say yes. Lord.
Today we have a special speaker, and she's my roommate, my best friend, and I'm just so happy that she's finally speaking. This is her first speech, or whatever you guys want to call it. But I just wanted you guys to welcome her as she comes up and speaks the word of God. Ciao.
Well, I don't mean it when I say it. That I hate that. I just get so scared. It just came out. So, every single time. Alright. So, I just want to ask you a question. Who of you, just raise your hand, in the last couple months have been asked the question, who are you? Yeah? Okay. And who of you have been able to, who of you felt like you could answer that question? Okay. And so, who of you felt like you couldn't? Alright. Typically, I don't know, when we're thinking, okay, well, who am I? I need to figure this out for some sort of paper that we're doing in class. It's, well, okay, what do I go to? And there's kind of like 5 things that I was thinking of. The first one is, what am I good at? What are my hobbies? What are my talents? What are my giftings? And then the second one is, well, wealth, there's economy, and where have I come from? How much money do I have? How much money do my parents have? There's work, what do I do every single day? What do I aspire to? What do I plan to do with my life? How does it reflect me? And then there's like cultural background and ethnicity, so like, who am I? Where have I come from? What is my heritage? And how does that, how do I live into that? What does that make me? And then there's just your likes and dislikes. So what I do prefer to do or to wear or stuff like that, and then what I don't. And after one of the times of being asked for the millionth time, who are you? I was thinking, well, why? Why do I need to know who I am? Why is it so important to us? And it's because that we are human. And we're asking the same exact question that people have been asking for hundreds and thousands of years, which is, what is my meaning and my purpose? So I created a little diagram. And it's, so we have all of our answers to those questions. Good at, work, wealth, stuff like that. And then that informs our identity. And then that, therefore, informs what my meaning and my purpose is. And I was looking through the Old Testament on purpose. And I remembered the book of Ecclesiastes. And it's this book where, if you've ever read it, a lot of people are like, I don't get it. Know why. It's in the book of the Bible. It doesn't sound happy at all. And that's because the preacher is asking the same exact questions. He's saying, what is the purpose and the meaning of life? Why are we here? And he kind of talks about 3 things. He says, okay, I'm going to search for meaning and purpose, and I'm going to search to make something my goal. And that is, the first one is wisdom. So he talks about, okay, I'm going to be the smartest person. I'm going to go to all these philosophical meetings and conferences, stuff like that. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to seek answers and all these things. And he says, okay, if you're wise at all, you know that you're never going to know everything. And there's no guarantee of knowing everything. There's just some things that we cannot figure out. And there's no real guarantee that we'll even be the smartest person in the room. You know, that we won't still struggle with that our entire life. And so he said, okay, wisdom, that can't really be my goal, my end. And so he said, talks about pleasure. Well, I'm going to do whatever I want to do and nothing that I don't want to do. And I'm going to party all day, party all night. I'm just going to do everything I want to. And he says that he comes to this point where it's just, there's something missing. Yeah, pleasure is good, but there's something else missing from that. And so he says, okay, that can't be my goal either. And then he goes to work and wealth, and he says, all right, I'm going to be the most successful person, I'm going to make a ton of money, and it's going to be great, right? And he comes to the point where he says, that can't be my goal, because I come home, I'm working so hard that I get super stressed out, and I come home and I can't even enjoy the things that I have paid for, the wealth that I've acquired. And he also goes, but there's also no guarantee of me getting wealthy, of having success, of having a lot of money, that something won't happen. And then there's, after that, no guarantee that if I do get those things, that what my legacy, the things that I want to be remembered for, the work that I've done won't just be given to somebody who squanders it. My wealth won't be given to somebody who's just foolish with it. And so he talks about wisdom and pleasure and work, and he says there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee here. And that's a reader, you're probably thinking at this time, like, great. This is awesome. I feel super pumped, right? You know, that none of those things can be my goal. And then you read chapter 3, and it talks about the appointed time for everything. And he says, not only do you not have any control over wisdom and pleasure and work and wealth, but you have no control over life in general. Yay! So we have no control over, there's a time for war, a time for peace, a time for mourning, a time for joy, a time for crying, a time for dancing, you know, all those things. And he talks about that life is just heaven. And you're probably thinking, I have no idea what the word means, and it doesn't even sound English, because it's not. It actually means, it's Hebrew, and it means smoke or vapor. And the first kind of meaning that comes into that is the definition that hevel is temporary and fleeting and finite. And the second definition is that hevel is an enigma or a paradox. And he says, everything under the sun on earth is hevel and is striving after the wind. So, going back to this idea of identity and who we are, wouldn't you say that when we place our identity in work and in wealth and in talents, etc., aren't we placing our identity in hevel? Yeah? You guys tracking with me? Yeah? Okay. And when we place our identity in these things, we ultimately are placing our faith in them. There's this quote that I've heard a lot, and it hits me every time. It says, faith is only as strong as the object in which you place it in. And so, like right now, I'm placing my faith in this mic, that it will project me, it won't crackle, things like that Derek won't all of a sudden leave and vanish, and I will be left without a sound guy. And you guys are putting your faith in chairs, so if one of those breaks, you're going down. So we put our faith in these things all the time. But not only that, but we place our career in them, our hopes and our dreams. So many of you know that I love singing. I sing all the time. And if I were to place my vocation in singing and in doing all those things, and I dedicated everything to it. I dedicated college to it. I have dedicated college to it. And my hopes and my dreams. And if singing went away from me, what would I do? What would I have? I feel like a lot of people have felt this before, where something goes away and you just think, well, I'm lost. I don't know what else I'm just supposed to do now. And I had a very real experience with this in high school. And it was between my junior year and my senior year. It was the summer. And I had this best friend. We had been best friends all throughout high school. We hung out all the time. We did everything together. We were so alike. And I put my identity in my friendship with her. And it was around that time that she got some new friends and started hanging out with them a lot more. And I just fell to the wayside. And she wasn't initiating that friendship anymore, so I said, screw it. See ya. Okay, because I feel lost right now, so I don't know what else to do. So this year at school, my senior year at high school, I'm going to put my everything into drama and music and my friends at school, and I'm going to do all of that. And it's going to be good. And I even stopped going to church because she was the only other senior at my high school youth group, and there's just a lot of things I just felt like, well, I can't be bitter and give her the cold shoulder when she's actually there, because then it would be painfully obvious, and I didn't want to confront that, so I was like, fine, I'm just gonna stop. Who cares? I know. So I was really invested in that my senior year, and I came to this point where I was coming home from hanging out with my friends, and I went into my room, I sat on my bed, and I remember feeling empty. And I thought about that, and I couldn't shake it, and it was because the joy that I had in that moment of hanging out and being with my friends, it didn't carry over into that moment. And I was like, I just feel empty. This wasn't lasting. And looking back, I realized that on the things that fail me, on things that break my heart and that hurt me, and I just can't ask the question, why? Why do I do this to myself? Why do we do this to ourselves? And I was reading through chapter 3 in Ecclesiastes, and I came to this verse, and it's chapter 3, verse 11. It says, "He has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end." At first, I would have just passed over that, like, okay, all right. But that time that I read it, it just caught me, and I realized it says, God has set eternity in our hearts. And in that moment, in my room, I grew up in the church. I knew what would fill me, what would be lasting, and I've always heard about it. I never really entered into it, but I didn't do anything about it because it's so much easier to fill ourselves with the things that are here, under the sun, that I can see, and I can think I understand, and I can touch. But I realize that we just fill ourselves with things that are finite, temporary, hevel. And yet God has set in our hearts this desire for something eternal. So how does that work, And I was thinking about that, and I made a little diagram of the story in Genesis. And so in the garden, we're naked, we're happy, everything's good, and then the fall happens. And what happens immediately after is that we put on clothes. Sorry for my little we put on clothes, right? Like, what is that? And it's because that's case one of seeking things that are here, that are physical, to replace something that was eternal. That we put on clothes to protect ourselves, to shield ourselves, and to make us an identity that we can rest in and depend on, but those things don't last. And it's the garden. It's that place where you're entering into a relationship with Christ and with God. That it's then that you don't need to put on clothes. I'm not saying go around naked. Please don't. But it's at that point where yes, we may have clothes. Yes, we may have wealth and work and things like that. We may have a desire to go to places to do these things, but we don't have to depend on them. We don't have to use them as our shield and our strength because we have God. We rest in Him. And I was thinking about this, and it's beautiful, yeah, but why does God want to be the one we're dependent on? How are we so important to Him that He wants us to depend on Him? And it's because He knows you and he loves you. And he has your heart and your soul and your life in mind. And he knows that these other things, finite things, Hevel, do not have your life in mind. And he just wants us to be dependent on him. And I was thinking about his love and how he brings this fullness and he brings this eternity. And if you want to go to Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14, it says, "For this reason I bow my knee before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name, that he will grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, and to know that the love of Christ surpasses all knowledge, that you may be filled up to all the fullness of God." And I was thinking about this, how we are, this is Paul saying, reaffirming Ecclesiastes and saying that yes, we have a desire for something that is eternal. We do, in all of us. And he says that love of God, that inexplainable mystery to us, is the only thing that can fill us. And in verse 18, oh, I just love it. Okay, it's this beautiful, beautiful description of God's love. Because it talks about the breadth and the height and the depth and the length. And it's so, I just want to describe this for you so you can really just get a picture of this love. It's so, wow. So the first one is the breadth, which is the width. And it says that God's love is all-encompassing. That he is drawing everyone in this room, on this campus, in this city, in this country, and in this world to his love. And that not only that, but he is drawing all of you. You individually, he is drawing all of you. He doesn't want just a fraction of you to depend on him. But he wants all of you to depend on him. Because he knows he loves you and he wants to do that. And then there's a length, which says that his love is unbound by time. That he loves us in our past, he loves us in our present, and he loves us in our future. Always. And then there's the depth of his love, which says, it's the saying in a lot of the hymns in the scripture, it says, deep calls unto deep. And it's that the depth of our desire for something that is eternal calls unto the depth of who God is and his love for us. And not only that, but it says that the depth of his love, and no matter how deep you think that you dug yourself into a pit, and I said this in night of worship, but I want to say it again, no matter how deep you think you've dug yourself in brokenness and being dependent on finite things, that his love goes deeper still. It goes deeper still. And then the other part to the depth is that no matter where you're at, and the fact that he's drawing all of you, he sees you, he knows you, he made you, he loves us in our past, our present, our future, and that he loves you, he'll meet you right where you're at, in pit and brokenness and all of that. And he says that his love can't leave us there, that he desires to take us into the heavenlies and into the fullness of his love and life and dependency upon him. And he is begging us to be rooted and grounded in love, in his love that is eternal and is good. And so I reshaped that diagram from earlier into this new one, and it says that when we place our identity in God, it's then that we have strength and we're rooted in him. That we're not dependent on the things of this world like the garden. We are dependent upon him. And then that will inform the things about, the things that we are good at. Because we are individuals. Like, listen, I'm not saying that we should be all the same person, that you need to conform or something like that. But, even in Ephesians, it says that every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. You are made with such a uniqueness about you, that you are made with things that you are good at. Your background, your likes and your dislikes, you are made for a purpose, and there's only one you. But that, he says that I wish for you to root yourself in me so that I can tell you the beautiful things about these things that I placed on earth. And it's then that you will have a fuller meaning and purpose that you'll understand, and you'll be able to flourish in, because you won't be held in chains by the things that are pebble. And I really want to leave with asking you a couple of questions. And it's, what do you place your identity in? I mean, we all do it. I do it a ton. But really think about that. And then think about what would happen if that thing right now went away for forever. How would you feel? What would happen? What would you do? And if anything, guys, just know that God sees you. He sees you, He knows you better than yourself. And He loves you so much that He is wanting to draw you into Himself, into love, into life, into truth, and into a purpose that will just bring you more joy than you could ever experience. So at this time, my message to you guys is done, and I want to invite you guys to worship and the praise team to come up. But if any of you want prayer, Nick and Jess and I will be up here and just be here to pray for you. I love you guys.